we already kind of knew this. XAL'ATATH isn't going to be the last boss in the War Within. That's pretty obvious at this point. She's probably going to be the final baddie in either Midnight or the Last Titan. But Doran's saying we already know who the final boss is going to be in the War Within. Who does he think it's going to be? Let's see what he says here in this video.
So originally we just speculated in the dark who the final boss of the War Within is, but now we have actually data-mined our storyline of 11.0. We have very strong evidence for the remaining 2 patches as well. We got the Goblin hints, we got a place called Renilash, we got a newly discovered Light Emperor on a new continent we will be visiting soon, as well as most importantly developments on what appears to be the 5th old god that we've been talking about for years now. Even more importantly, we got information on who XAL'ATATH is and what she's doing, so right now we can actually talk about the final boss of the War Within with actual evidence. So who is going to be the ultimate big bad of this new WoW expansion? If you guys want to buy Total War, Elder Scrolls, or any other game, you can get them at great prices with my Gamivo link. You can also get anything warcraft related, gift cards and software, and all below market prices. Best of all, if you add my code DORON, you can get an even bigger discount, so make sure to check out my link in the description and get some amazing deals with Gamivo. So realistically, it has actually been quite a while since we've had one big bad that we knew that we will fight right off at the start, and that was really only Deathwing and the Lich King. Most of the time, we knew kind of what the threat was, but the final boss ended up being someone entirely different.
Yeah, the first expansion that we really didn't know who the end boss was going to be off the box was Mists of Pandaria, but we all knew Garrosh, was the main story string kind of going forward. Those things were happening, but we didn't know who the end boss was.
With the World Soul Saga, though, this is pretty much following the exact same trend. We are aware that the Void and the Titans are going to be the overarching threats of the saga, but it is hard to say who will be the actual final boss. Early on, when the expansion was announced, I was saying that XAL'ATATH could be the final boss of the War Within, the Void Lords are Ashara for Midnight, and the Titans are Sargeras for the Last Titan, but it is just way too much speculation. It is hard to predict anything really that far in advance. Luckily, for the War Within, the alpha just ended, showing us all the zones. We data mined our storyline for 11.0, we got some hints for 11.1 and 11.2, so right now we can kind of more accurately talk about who will actually be the final boss. First, most important thing is an interview that Blizzard did that you might have missed a few years back, and that is that they talked about stopping the big bad villain and then on to the next type expansions, and they promised to do pretty much exactly what they're doing right now with the World Soul Saga, which is expansions being more akin to gigantic patches and seamlessly working with one another, so
keeping the story basically not just chapter based. But here's the thing, who do I think is going to be the final boss right now going forward? Probably an Iridikron. I feel like Iridikron's going to be the War Within boss, because he's still trying to bait out the Titans. He's working with XAL'ATATH. He's talked a lot about it. I think he could be the one that we fight at the end of the War Within, and then Midnight could be XAL'ATATH, or maybe the whatever the essence of a Void Lord, and then XAL'ATATH in the Last Titan. That whole voidy shit, I feel like, is going to play in the background a lot in the War Within and really come out in the next expansion.
True, big bad will be shown in the Last Titan at the end of the saga, but we are going to get someone for the War Within. Also, a good thing about the saga so far is that it doesn't seem to be based on one big bad like the Jailer, but really the entire cosmos as a whole, so multiple threats are coming for Azeroth. But technicalities aside, let us talk about who is actually going to be the final boss of the War Within. Now, to discuss this, I will have to spoil a few things, pretty much the entire storyline of 11.0, but it's really not that big of a deal. It's a pretty cookie-cutter storyline so far, with nothing really that groundbreaking happening, so it's nothing really crazy going on. In Kazakhstan, we're dealing with the Earthen and how they work. We're uniting with these Arathi, which are going to be our main allies together with the Earthen, and we are dealing with a Nerubian civil war, allying with some of the Nerubians. Now, some really interesting lore from the alpha that we got a few days ago is that the Nerubians are actually connected to Azul Nerub in Northrend. We have a memory of King Anubarak desperately pleading for the Queen to send her forces to Northrend as they're losing the war against the Scourge. It appears they're a part of the same empire despite the ruling dynasties being different, but the Queen shuns Anubarak, doesn't send help, and the War of the Spider ends, as you may know. The King Anubarak falls, gets converted, becomes the right hand of Arthas. However, quite a few Nerubians value their independence and they don't like the Harbinger and what she's doing. That is essentially the main story of 11.0.
Oh, I did not know the main story of 11.0, I guess. I didn't know that there were going to be Nerubians that kind of go against siding with the Void. So there's going to be Nerubians on our side. That's it. Confirm, boys. playable Nerubians are coming.
Us battling the Harbinger, a line queen of the Nerubians.
There are humanoid-looking Nerubians, so I mean, I say it as a joke. They're right here, but some people have been saying, "Oh my God, we're gonna get playable Nerubians." I actually don't think so.
Now, seeing that Midnight very likely won't be announced this year, it is almost certain that the War Within is going to be a 2-patch expansion akin to Dragonflight, with the final boss being in 11.2. So far, we actually have some very interesting setups and evidence, and we could predict the next 2 patches with some actual evidence. As I had previously speculated, we have very strong hints that we're going to be seeing Undermine, and that there will be a huge new land with the goblins.
Oh yeah, the goblin shit.
We have explored Kazakar already in 11.0. If we get a goblin patch, it is likely that 11.2 will be a new zone as well. So far we got 2 hints for the next 2 zones. One is that we keep getting constant mentions of Kadesh, the fallen planet of the Ethereals, one destroyed by Dimensius.
If you don't know, yeah, Koresh is the home planet of the Ethereals, and I cannot wait. If we go to Koresh or we see it or witness how it was destroyed, do something with the Ethereals. Oh my God, that's some lore that I've always wanted to visit back all the way since Burning Crusade. When we really got to know the Ethereals, my God, I've wanted to go to their home planet, wanted to know more about them. I really hope we delve into that lore.
The old devouring, the same Void Lord that is actually the master of XAL'ATAth, and that has been confirmed in the alpha. We're getting a lot of Ethereals involved. We learned that Kadesh had the same visions as Azeroth is getting. Personally, I think this is going to be saved for Midnight, or maybe even a raid. The other hint, though, is this Light Emperor from the other side of Azeroth.
Yeah,
I don't want to repeat myself a million
badass.
times. Check out my full previous video for all the detailed hints we got on them. But quickest summary possible, these Arathi arrived here 15 years ago. They were sent by a very powerful light-devoted emperor of the new Arathi Empire from a land beyond the Storming Sea, so potentially the other side of Azeroth. He initially got the same vision as Anduin, and he envisioned a light and void final battle in a place called Renilash, but the expedition got teleported to the light crystal Beledar instead. Now, one key thing to note is that the expedition originally contained a contingent of...
Now, one thing I will say about this Light Emperor, I'm not sure how to feel about him yet. We just found out about him not too long ago. We know because he was the one, supposedly, who sent this expedition out that eventually ended up in Hallowfall. And by the way, the expedition was much bigger, but a bunch of their blimps were like lost in some kind of storm. Some weird light event happened that teleported the ones that one that made it right now into Hallowfall. And they only have one mage left, and he's like an apprentice. Supposedly they were supposed to have mages that would make portals back to their kingdom, their Arathi-based kingdom that's far on the other side of Azeroth. But the only mage that survived the storm is some janky-ass little mage that doesn't know how to make portals yet. He's still an apprentice. So that's how that story happens. We already went through that. But this Light Emperor was the one who sent him. Now, he's an emperor of this Hallowfall-style light, right? This freaking flaming light that we know nothing about so far. It's going to be very interesting to see how he plays out going forward, and how maybe he's going to interact with Turellian eventually, who's like a worshiper of the light that we know. I feel like there's going to be something that happens with him going forward. What it is, I have no idea, but Turellian's going to play a role. This Light Emperor, there's going to be a lot of light storylines going forward.
Of mages that were meant to open a portal so that the Emperor could actually potentially access the zone. So this expedition was definitely not meant to be isolated as it is right now, but they all ended up dying in the crash. I mean, they literally just ran out of mages. Now, obviously a bit of a spoiler, but Delran, the city of mages, crashes right into Kazakar, and pretty much all the mages that taught everyone how to open portals, and we ally with these Arathi.
Damn.
It seems very
We're gonna have a mage shortage.
That we are going to open a portal soon, and that we are going to be meeting with the Light Emperor. So, thus far from the patch content, we got goblins, we got Kadesh, which I don't really think is likely now, and we got the Arathi Empire on a new hidden continent. Goblins, I think, are just going to be some filler content, maybe some Azerite, Old God, Void involvement, but the Arathi continent could actually be major development that will span across multiple expansions. We don't know if this Emperor is going to be good or not, but it is possible that at the end of the expansion that envisioned the Light and Void battle in Renilash, it may happen actually at the end of War Within, like we lose that battle, and then the actual Void invasion happens in Quotala. So one of the bosses we could be envisioning, the final boss of the War Within, it could be in this place called Renilash that was mentioned by the Light Emperor, and he could potentially be involved in this as well. Now, the other elephant in the room, the other gigantic hint, is that possible fifth old god we got from the mural in the alpha. Once again, check out my full video on all the symbolism because it's super crazy. However, we found what appears to be the 5th lost old god in a mural on a Nerubian wall. Nerubians appear to be sacrificed to him, and a suspicious void crystal is next to him as well. If this is ancient history, this might be that 5th old god that was defeated by the other old gods like Yashraj and Azot, hence the black blood that is all over Khazakar, the old god blood. Also, the
Nerubians, originally been if you don't know already, the Nerubians in the Halifal or in their zone are actually collecting they're collecting old god blood. We don't know who that old god blood belongs to yet, whether it's one of the ones that we've met before or this 5th one. But we do know that that is the reason XAL'ATATH has aligned with them, is basically to have them collect this blood.
Void crystal.
We don't know what it's going to be used for yet either.
The void in ancient history. This means that the finale of the War Within will very likely
it's just
be
N'Zoth?
based
I don't think
on
so.
the crystal and the 5th old.
No, I don't think that looks like N'Zoth. The shape of his head, the placement of his eyes, he doesn't look like N'Zoth either. I don't think N'Zoth even has that many eyes.
Old god. Here's the thing, XAL'ATATH is still, even at this point, a likely strong candidate for a final boss of the expansion. The reason is because she outsmarts us in the pre-patch and she messes up Dalaran. Then throughout 11.0 we try to assassinate her multiple times, but we fail, which might be a setup for like the final battle where we actually face off against her like on even ground. However, recently we got some interesting hints on who XAL'ATATH is. It is very much possible she was actually involved, together with Dimensius, on destroying Karesh in ancient history, the ethereal homeworld, and that her goal is to actually bring him to Azeroth like she brought Dimensius to Karesh. Thus far, we only know the Void will invade in Midnight. I mean, we can't really predict whether XAL'ATATH will survive in the next expansion. So obviously, lots of talk in different directions, but based on the current info, in conclusion, it is very likely that the final boss of the War Within is going to be Void based. Maybe something in Ranilash where we ally with the Light Emperor, maybe the 5th old god revived through the artifact, or us actually fighting XAL'ATATH. Remember, we
can't forget about Iridikron. We are going to fight him at some point. He's planning his shit, and actually part of his story is he does want to fight, but he wants to fight the Titans. He really doesn't give a shit about us, which is kind of refreshing, actually. It's a cool... I like him. It's a cool way to tell his story, and that he just thinks we're kind of like, yeah, throwaways, and the big boys are who he really wants to deal with. But we're going to fight him. Whether or not it's in the War Within or going forward in Midnight, I would think it's going to be in the War Within, honestly.
Don't know fully what XAL'ATATH is.
I don't think he'll make it till the end.
That was confirmed, but she's also not a void elf. She could literally be a huge monstrosity in her true form. The Dark Heart artifact is definitely going to be involved. She seems to have gathered Galakrond in Dragonfight. She then went to Ulduar in the pre-patch, possibly to get something from Yogg-Saron. So it is possible she could use this essence to revive the 5th old god we saw on the wall to like complete the awakening of Azeroth. This could actually be possible because if this guy would be the only one that was defeated by his own and not us or the Titans, it could mean that he could actually get revived, because the old gods didn't really defeat him fully like the Titans or we did. Overall though, very likely the War Within final battle is not going to be some groundbreaking fight. Definitely not a filler like Farak in Dragonfight, but it's definitely just going to be a setup for the Void invasion in Last. It's not going to be like some saga ending thing. I could envision us defeating the 5th old god or XAL'ATATH, and then her outsmarting us for the last time to actually bring Dimensius, the old devour, into Azeroth in the expansion that will be coming after. Thank you for watching. Check out why Sargeras actually stabbed Azeroth that we learned recently by clicking on the screen, and check out my video on the Cult of Mithras and Roman mythology by clicking on the screen as well. See you next time.
Yeah, again, who's going to be the final boss of the War Within? Not somebody too important, I don't think. Because going forward, the storyline continues, and really what happens is we go into Midnight and we kind of take a loss, right? We're supposed to take a loss. Blizzard confirmed that we're going to take really our first big L. Even though I think the Lich King really gave us an L, we just got revived by the light. That's true. But going forward, who the boss will be, we know the big players are Iridikron, XAL'ATATH, and the Titans, right? They're the 3 big bads that kind of we've been dealing with. And the Titans aren't necessarily bad, but I do think we're going to have to deal with them at some point. So you have those 3. What order we fight them in, how it's going to happen, not sure yet. But it does make sense to me that it goes Iridikron, XAL'ATATH, and then the Titans at the very end, considering it is the last Titan. And the Jailer. Yes, of course, Tidewell. Thank you for that.